Hey guys, Nick here from Shop Last, and today I'm going to show you how to build this plant stand the right way. So let's get into it. These are all of the pieces we're going to need. You need two, I'm using 1-inch dowels, and one 1x2. We need to cut these to the measurements that we want. So the two things we're going to need to know are going to be how tall do we want our plant stand to be, and how big is the pot that's going to be going into the plant stand so we can cut our cross member the right length out of this 1x2. So let's do that. This is the pot I'm going to use. Alright, so the first measurement we need is going to be how wide the pot is, and personally my pot I chose isn't perfectly cylindrical, meaning the side walls aren't perfectly straight up and down. So I'm going to measure from the widest part, and I know that my pot is 12 3/4 of an inch wide, so that is how long we're going to cut our cross member pieces. When it comes to design, personally I like to think of things in rule of thirds. So our pot is roughly 12 inches tall. So the way I'm going to do it is if we go with rule of thirds. So 12 divided by 3 is 4. So I'm going to have the pot sit 4 inches off the ground. That's where I want to have the cross member start. And then I want it to travel 8 inches up the side of the pot, since that's 2/3 of the pot's total height. So we're going to take our 4 inches plus 2 inches, which is the height of our cross member, and then plus another 8 inches. That leaves us with 14 inches. So I'm going to cut my dowels to 14 inches long, and I'm going to cut our cross member pieces to 12 3/4 of an inch. So we're going to take our miter box here and our saw, and we're going to take our dowels, and we're going to measure 14 inches. There's our dowel pieces. So the next step is going to be cutting our cross member pieces to length, but instead of cutting them straight and having them butt up against a round dowel, we're going to use a Forstner bit to create a round cut straight up and down so that it wraps around the dowel instead of just butting into it and leaving gaps. The best way to do that is going to be to use a drill press, because that way you'll be guaranteed to get a nice straight cut. But if you don't have a drill press, like I don't, you can get this. It is the Miles Craft drill guide, and what this does is you can put in your bit on this chuck here, and then you can take your drill and you can just lock it onto this upper piece, and then that spins the drill bit. So this is what we're going to use to cut our piece. Alright, we're going to make our marks here. I want to make sure I make this far enough in so that my drill guide has room to sit on top of it. So I'm just going to mark here, and then 12 3/4 of an inch. Okay, so there's our second spot. So what's really cool about this drill guide is that it has indents so that you can self-center the drill. So what that means is that I can put this on here like this, turn it, and these little tabs are hitting the end. And so now when I go to put this down, I know it's gonna be centered with the piece of wood, which is just super dope. But obviously this is kind of wobbly. So what I'm gonna do to make sure we're getting a really nice straight drill is I'm gonna use my clamps here to fasten it down. This will be easier with the drill off of it. Take the drill off, and now we can set this up a little easier. So line it up so that the outside edge of your Forstner bit is hitting right on that line. Okay. And you can clamp it down. Take my other one. So the reason we're taking so much time making sure that this is in the right spot is that if you imagine this cut, if it's made at any kind of weird angle, that's the angle that the dowel's going to be at. So you want to make sure it's really nice and perfectly straight. So now we can make the cut. All right, the next step is going to be to cut some notches into these pieces so that they can connect together and form the cross member. So we need to find the exact center of these. So what I'm going to do is just measure this out. That's the center. The same thing with this one. 6.5. I'm going to take my square and I'm going to just transfer that to the top. Alright, so there's the dead center of that. So now that we have our centers marked, we can measure out where we're actually going to cut the grooves. So I'm going to mark 3/8 of an inch from each side because that is half of 3/4 of an inch. Perfect. Same to this one. All right, there is where we need to make our cutouts so they can fit together. Normally, what I would do is, now I would mark down halfway down this side, halfway down this side, so that way I can take our miter box and our saw and cut down to that point and then chisel it out. But I own a skill saw and I'm lazy, so I'm gonna use this. So what I'm gonna do instead is, this is 1.5 inches, so 3/4 of an inch. Perfect, set to 3/4 of an inch. All right, I got my pieces clamped down and I've got my blade set to 3/4 of an inch past the depth. So now I'm just gonna cut these. Boom, there's our cross member. Pretty dang good. Now that we have our pieces cut, we're going to mark where the cross members are going to land on our dowels. So first, I'm going to mark 4 inches. I'm going to make 2 marks on these, and you'll see why. So, I made this little tiny template thing, which is the same width and the same height as our crossmember pieces. And then I marked out where I want my dowels to go on those pieces. So now what we can do, we can take this little piece, line it up on those 2 marks, take an awl or something else with a point, and we're just gonna poke a hole right where we want that to go. And that's where we're gonna put our dowels. So I'm gonna go ahead and mark each one of these. Now that we have those marked, we can take our little drill block, and I've already preset the depth of the stopping ring to be a little more than half of the length of the dowel. That way it doesn't get stopped too early and then not go in all the way. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna take this, we're gonna pop it in our drill, and we're gonna take our little doodad here, poke it through first, get it lined up with that dot, and then we can rest the block on the block. There it is. Do the same thing for the rest of the holes. Now that we have all of the holes drilled, we need to transfer these holes to these. So what we're gonna do is we're going to take these little things that came with our little drill set, and what these do is help transfer the holes to where we want them to go on the other piece. I'm gonna line it up with the mark. now what I'm gonna do is drill out these guys. All right, let's do a little bit of a dry fit so we can see that it's all gonna go together properly. All right, now we're gonna cut some supports so that our glue up is nice and straight. I'll show you what I'm talking about. The reason we cut these extra pieces is so that when we do our glue up, now we have spacers to put on the top so that they stay the same ways apart when we clamp it up and they don't get wonky. Now that we know it fits well and we have our crossmember pieces, the support pieces cut for the glue up, now it's time for the fun part, sanding. Woo! Alright, now it's time to glue up. Let's do it. Alright, it is the next day. The glue has dried. So we can undo the clamp here. Looks pretty good. If you like natural wood color, you could just put a finish on this and it would be good to go. I, however, I think I want to stain it black. So what I'm gonna do is use some leather dye. I've been seeing some videos and this stuff working really well to stain wood, so I'm going to try and use some of this to make this black, and then we'll let that dry and then we'll put some finish on it and it'll be done. Once the stain is dried, now you're going to apply your finish.